Five-star wide receiver Zachariah Branch commits to USC. He kept his commitment. He had committed last year, and he is now headed to Caleb Williams, led USC team, and Lincoln Riley. And what can they do with this five-star wide receiver? He brings immediate impact to this team, who's losing Jordan Addison, and definitely needed kind of that bump up with the athleticism in that wide receiver room. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a look at it. We're going to break down his strengths, his weaknesses, his overall outlook on the team, and what we could expect from the new Trojan. All right, let's dive into it, and let's look at Zachariah Branch. And I think Trojan fans, you guys are going to be excited for this kid, just how good he is and what he was able to do out there at Bishop Gorman and what he did in Las Vegas. And again, he's the number one positional player at wide receiver, and they're also getting Malachi Nelson, who among some is number one quarterback. So when we're thinking of like who's coming in, Mekhi Lemon as well, wide receiver there. So what can Branch bring to this team? So let's first look at what he did in high school. So, 2019, 18 receptions, 391 yards, 21 average. You're going to notice something about him. And the biggest thing that you should notice is that his yards per reception, like 21.7, 19.1, 22.8, 16.7. Like he's that big play kid. So notice that. Then obviously his junior year, when you're looking at what he was able to do, 1,000 yards, 14 touchdowns. This last year, a little bit of a downgrade there, but overall, very productive, high impact player. And the other thing too that you don't notice on here is that he's a legitimate punt and kickoff return. Like when we're talking like, special teams, he is that guy. He's going to be a playmaker. He's immediately going to get on that field next year and going to be all over that field. And I guarantee you they're going to put him in that punt return and kick return areas. And you're going to notice that. We're going to watch the tape on that, what he was able to do. As a junior, that junior season that you see that he really elevated himself. He led the team to a 5A state championship, and you see that, right? And again, comps that are getting thrown out for him, Tyreek Hill, all of stuff. You're going to notice that when we watch the tape. Like, that's not actually far-fetched from what we've seen. The 100 meters, he's 10.33, so we see that speed and everything there. Now, let's talk about what he does well. Speed, first one, like I talked about, 100 meters, 10.33. You're going to see that. He does not have a recorded 40 time in terms of like where we've seen in any track or anything like that, but he is legitimately fast. Like, you're going to see him just game breaker, going over the top, second level stuff. Like, that's what he does. Explosiveness off the line, like those things he does well. When he gets the ball and when they get into space, like there's not a lot of teams that are going to be able to catch him. And he's going to be a immediate impact player in the Pac-12. You're going to see that vertical threat. I think he's a better vertical threat than what Addison was. And I know Dorian Singer is transferring there from Arizona, but when you're looking at it overall, like he might become their immediate vertical threat on this roster. And with Caleb Williams throwing him the ball, oh my God, boys and girls, this is going to be an elite pass catching and elite offense that you're going to see. Like that's a fantastic offense and a fantastic just scenario for all of college football to watch, and especially Trojan fans. Like, he elevates that offense, and we haven't been able to say that really about like Addison was fine in those areas, but I mean, he's just a special athlete. Now, as far as like what he can work on in terms of like, hey, what's next? I mean, you're not going to really work on the size. 5'10", 172. Obviously, he's going to be at a slimmer frame. You'd like to see him get up to 180 if he could. I don't know if he's going to, because I don't know if he's going to lose that explosiveness. 5'10" is not bad. So when you think about size and all this type of things, that's not terrible. 172, I mean, that's something to look at, right? Like, hey, will he be able to add like 8 or 9 pounds? Because you're looking at, what is he, Xavier Worthy? I know Worthy's a little smaller than that. And I think his frame's a little bit bigger. You can tell he's got muscle mass. But overall, like, hey, size, right? Injury concerns. He's definitely had a couple injuries that you're looking at, and you saw that production, that lack of production, his basically a sophomore season and what he was able to do there. A lot of it was injuries, so you're going to see that, and that comes from with that size, right? With that frame. Like, hey, you have the injuries, now you have that size concerns. Like, are those the things that, are those where they come from? Now, route running too. So one thing that it did highlight, and when you watch the tape, he's a very good vertical threat. Like, he's going to go, he does that area, and then you'll see the quick screens getting out in space and do that. Now, that's going to elevate his game because Lincoln Riley does that. But the route running, I think, is something concerned about when we're thinking NFL prospects, right? When we're like, okay, he's got to get nuance in there. He can separate early in his routes. He does that pretty well. He's got that vertical routes. He's able to separate there. But a lot of his stuff was crossing routes and vertical routes and throw it up and go give it to him. Or, those screens. Like, can he get a little bit of nuance? What does it look like in press coverage? Because he doesn't see that a lot in high school. He's not going to see that. So at the press coverage level, if he sees that at the next level, is he going to be able to get offline? Will it disrupt his route running? Like, those are the kind of nuanced things that you're looking at when you're looking at Branch and moving forward. Now, let's just watch the tape, though. So one thing you're going to notice, first of all, is his punt return skills, right? So playing at Bishop Gordon, playing in the Raider Stadium, this is that athlete. And the one thing you're going to highlight from him is just his elusiveness, right? So I didn't really highlight that in there, but you should just know he's got elusiveness all over the field. Look what he's able to do. I mean, this looks like a JV team that he's playing right here. And McQueen High School is, having lived in Reno and knowing kind of area, it's okay. But when you're looking over what he's been able to do, like that's area. Now, again, right here, deep threat, throwing it over the middle, going to go get it, and no one's going to catch him. Like his strength's there. And then that's what excites me is that he's going to be playing with Caleb Williams. Like he's never played with a quarterback like Caleb Williams, Heisman Trophy winner, right? Again, to get it out of space, reverse, kind of doing that. Like that is where they're going to utilize him. And I can see them doing this. That's his playmaking ability, right? So when we think of Branch, I mean, he's legitimately that good of an athlete. Like the Tyreek Hill comparisons are not far-fetched in terms of what he's able to do. I know everybody uses Tyreek Hill. Everybody says it, but that's where now, so let's think about Campus to Canton or even those type of leagues. Like he's going to elevate your teams because he has that ability to break that special playmaking ability. And he's going to be using the punt return and kick return. So those are the points there. Now, again, you're going to see I want to show some routes there. This is where it really excels though. Like this is his screens, getting out in space, that area. Again, deep balls. The one thing to note, though, as we're watching this, and I see that he's doing all that, is the lack of kind of, nuanced route running. He does this, gets out in space, kind of makes a guy miss. He does that vertical stuff. But when I highlighted that nuanced route running, that's the question mark. Like he gets behind guys here. But what happens when a guy plays 10 yards off of him? It doesn't allow him to do that, right? Like that's the question mark I think I have for Branch overall. Like, hey, he's got to improve on that next level. Now he's going to a great school and a great system, and he should be okay. Now, talking about outlook for him, like let's just get into like what we're seeing out there in terms of like that roster. So when we're thinking of like just overall, like we know Brendan Rice is still there, Kyle Ford is probably staying, Kyron Hudson is also still there, Mario Williams is coming back, Tosh Washington, I'm assuming, CJ Williams, remember he was a high 4-star recruit last year, so those guys are coming. Then you're looking at the recruits they got coming in, Mekhi Lemon, wide receiver there. And then, your transfers. And they've done a pretty good job of the transfer portal. Jacoby Lane is another one. He's a hard commit. He hasn't committed all the way through. 4-star kid. But then transfer-wise, Dorian Singer from Arizona, very highly sought after prospect, someone I've talked about on this channel before. Like going forward, what does he look like? Now, so when we think of the depth chart, what do we think? Where do you think he pencils in? I think he becomes an immediate asset. Like with Caleb and everybody there, like that's fantastic. And then think about it. Once Caleb leaves, he's got Malachi Nelson throwing the ball, and those two could be a dynamic duo for 2 more years after that. Like Branch is a guy that you should be comfortable drafting if you're in Devy, C2C, those type of things. Like that is perfectly okay for me. Like I'd be okay drafting those guys. Now, if you're a USC fan out there and you're watching this, you should be excited, man. This is one of the best offensive weapons that we've seen come out of high school in some time. Like legitimately, he is that special and he's there. And now, where are you going to draft him? I think, when you're looking at just the recent mocks that we've done and where he's kind of gone, late second, early third, depending on the league that you're in, depending on how people do that. So I would say late second, early third. If you can get him in the third, I think that's the best value for him. If you get him in the second, I get it. Late second, probably right there. But based on the wide receiver room and the lack of wide receivers, maybe in that 25 class, maybe a little bit of question marks on the 24 class. Now, Devy, it's kind of a risk taking a freshman, but, C2C, all aboard this train because he's going to get you production. And USC should be excited. So you guys should be excited out there, USC fans. You got Zachariah Branch. He's going to fit right into that roster, and he's going to do well for you guys. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. Hit that like and subscribe button before you get out of here. Please, it does us well, and it shows us that, hey, you appreciate the content that we're putting out for you guys. Until next time, I'll see you later.